Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Bryan Norris joining us from Independence County here to talk about their initiative to get paper ballots. Hey, Bryan, thanks for joining us.
Jenny, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, listen, we've been following somewhat what you guys have going on there in Independence County. I recently watched a committee meeting at the legislature where you testified, and something that caught my eye, my ear, was you were talking about the Arkansas Association of Counties and just how they are becoming more involved in citizen-led initiatives such as paper ballots. And I thought it'd be really interesting to have you come on and talk to us. So tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, well, so before we get into the AAC, I'm a retired first sergeant with over 20 years of service to our country. I proudly served the Army, and I've proudly been serving my community in any instance that I can since I've retired and came to Batesville, Arkansas. And so I decided to get engaged and be active in my community and try to make a difference the best way that I saw fit moving forward. And one of the things that became clear is everyone was concerned about how their vote is counted. A lot of people that I were talking to were saying, well, I'm just not going to vote because it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
that really bothered me because of, my past career, because I was one of those guys that actually believed in what I was doing. And that's kind of a hit to the gut when you hear
Yeah.
one of your countrymen say that. So yeah, let's talk about the AAC, or the Arkansas Association of Counties, as they name that, and their role in undermining our initiative. The AAC has been using taxpayer dollars to fight against us in our efforts. They've been coordinating with clerks across the state to reject petitions in a methodical fashion, and to take the people's voice away from them.
Hmm.
We FOIA'd our county, and we discovered through these internal emails, which show that they circulated templated letters from the AAC through these counties to reject our petitions as insufficient before they were even submitted. So they had their game plan before we even turned in our petitions. Not only that, but they also game planned out what they were going to do for 2024 and 2026. And these internal communications, they're all saying, well, they're using out of state canvassers. We suspect that you're going to be able to toss out the ballot initiatives just by the out of state canvassers. That's illegal according to state law, which that was clarified with Judge Meyer. And so you can toss it out. And then in 2026, when they come back, we'll work on the ballot title, right? Well, Independence County threw a little bit of a wrench in their game plan because the vast majority of our signature collectors were local people from
Hmm.
Independence County. And they collected, more than 2,400 signatures.
Wow.
We did have some out-of-state canvassers come into our area, and they accounted for about 75 total signatures. And I have the roll up of every canvasser that was in our area, every sheet that they gave me. I numerically ordered every sheet. So I have every canvasser's name, exactly how many signatures they got, how many sheets they turned in. And then when we cured the documents, we validated that they were registered voters. And when we turned in, it was over 2,400 registered voters that we turned
Okay.
in, which is pretty significant. It's
Yeah.
actually not that easy. And we were out there in 100-degree plus weather. We were using our weekends, using PTO days, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we had a group that was motivated.
Yeah.
We had a plan out. We enacted our plan, and then to see that our local officials and leaders who claim to represent us are working against the very
Mm.
values that define us as Americans, and especially us as Republicans, conservatives. And to see that happen underneath the watch of Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders is disheartening. Like, she's been nowhere on this
Mm.
at all. And so I asked myself, why are these officials and organizations that should be protecting the public interest working against transparency in our elections?
Yeah, a lot of things have happened there in Independence County. I know that you mentioned you've been FOIAing documents. There's been a lawsuit filed. Something has gone all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to us about that. Did you ever imagine that discussing and working on something like election integrity would be so controversial?
No, what a strange hill to die on, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely it's insane to me. So we started out and we held a, we discussed this in our Independence County Republican Party meeting. Um, we got a group together that were primarily from the Republican Party, and we also passed a resolution in the Independence County Republican Party to support paper ballots. So we thought we had a concerted effort of this
Yeah.
group. Then we met on a Saturday morning at the Independence County Library, and we just kind of divvied everything out and how we were going to go about this. After we did that, and we started getting some initial successes, that's when things started getting combative within the Republican Party here in Independence County. All of a sudden, our elected officials started showing up to the meetings, in which they at that point they had been pretty much absent with the
Okay.
exception of one quorum court member. The county judge was there quite often, and another quorum court member would come quite frequently. But all of a sudden, they're packing it, and they began to get very confrontational. Um, and and to one point during a meeting, our local tax collector Paul Albert actually stood up and got, you know, visually aggressive towards another committee member, and Charlie Fuquay actually had to stand in between them to keep them
Hmm.
from getting physical. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. They calmed down, but the lines were drawn right
Yeah.
then, and
Okay.
and we decided as a group that we were going to ask all of our elected officials to sign a letter, and this letter simply stated that no matter the outcome of the vote on November 5th, that you would not go down to Little Rock and enact any laws that would take away the choice of the people of Independence County.
Hmm.
And if the people voted for paper ballots, you would support it. If they voted against paper ballots, you would support it. Every county official that was in attendance in that meeting voted against signing that letter. They refused. And to his credit, John Payton is our state senator. He was not in attendance in that meeting. I did speak with him about this letter, and he said he would sign it. Said he
Hmm.
had no problem signing that letter. If that was the, he did say, I like the machines. They're easy. They're convenient. But if the people decide they want to do hand count, who am I to get in the way? So he was the only elected official from our area that mentioned any kind of support whatsoever towards us. So we leave from that meeting disheartened but not deterred.
Sure.
We go out, we continue collecting signatures. We're on a roll. We're getting where we need to be, and all our county begins to hold its county fair. And as a committee, we purchase a booth at that
Uh-huh.
fair, and we're going to collect signatures at that booth. I spoke to some of the leaders of the county fair, and they said, yeah, that's fine as long as you don't walk around doing it. You can do it at your booth. But our county chairman, Cody Smith, refused to let us do it, would not allow it. So there were some members that when they were working the booth, they did collect signatures during that time. He found out about it and was quite furious about it. And then he would not publish our resolution that the committee passed to support paper ballots. He refused to do that. He wouldn't even
Why?
sign the letter. That's a great question. I mean, he doesn't understand that as the county chairman, he's just the lead administrator of the county
Yeah.
party.
You're not
And
the
if
ruler or the dictator. You're just there to facilitate and lead.
that's it, but he couldn't do that for whatever reason, probably
Hmm.
because he didn't want to upset some of the others
Sure.
in the line. And I can't believe that we're fighting Republicans more than we're
Yeah.
fighting the Democrats. In fact, the Democratic Party member of the election commissioner's office is the only one that would answer my phone calls after we turned in our petition. The Republicans wouldn't really talk to me.
You
Um,
know, that reminds me of something that we've had to talk about here at Conduit often. It's like our own Republicans are making us have to agree with the Democrats on,
well,
things. And It's wild right now, I think, here in the state of Arkansas inside the Republican Party.
Unpopular opinion, most of our Republicans are closet Democrats, in my view. They know that they can't win an election unless they put an R next to their name. And because, we have open primaries and everything else, they
Yep.
just go ahead, throw that R next to their name and go on and fake it till they make it. Um,
Yeah. Well, we've
for lack of a
had we've
better
had
phrase.
representatives before they ran. They've told our co-founder to do with that by name, and then they switch. But
Wow.
yeah,
Well, I mean, it's quite evident, right?
yeah,
Just based on their actions, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's the state of
yeah,
affairs that we're in now. Some people would prefer to, you know, not represent themselves honestly just to get a powerful position and move forward like that and work with
yeah,
the AAC and their motto is
yeah,
75 counties, one voice. And they're like a union using tax money to fight against us. And it seems like our officials are more than happy to,
yeah.
our
Well,
officials are in lockstep with the companies that own these machines and the AAC. They don't talk to the experts. We've given them, and that's something very important to note. We have invited them time and time again to speak to the actual experts. Like we had Dr. Appel come to Little Rock and Batesville on the 26th. In Little Rock, it was that entire meeting was geared towards elected officials and members of the press. They were all invited. Only one candidate in Little Rock, to my knowledge, showed up, and that was Kwame, I believe is his name, from Little Rock. And when Dr. Appel came to Batesville, um, Representative Wayne Long showed up, and there was another candidate, I believe it's Alicia Brown,
hmm
that showed up as well
hmm
to hear what the one of the world-renowned experts had to say
yeah,
about machines. And it was enlightening. And I'm one of those type of people to where I'm not an expert in things. And if I'm going to make a decision on something, I'm going to go and talk to people
sure.
that are the subject matter experts, right? And I'm not going to play around with things that I don't know about. I think it's very unfortunate that our elected officials are making decisions when they themselves admit that they're not technical experts, and then they're not having conversations with the actual experts that we bring, world renowned experts that we bring to Arkansas. It's just unfortunate.
It is. When you were testifying and you laid all of this out there, and we can talk more about it, but one thing that just struck me was how um, you said, does anyone have any questions? You laid out a ton of evidence. You talked about your FOIA documents. You talked about the AAC. And you're like,
Mhm.
if any of you guys want to get mad about something, get mad that this entity is using our own tax dollars to work against the people here in Arkansas. And the chair said, are you willing to accept questions? You said, of course. Any questions for Mr. Norris? Silence.
Silence.
Nothing.
Silence was deafening in that case.
It
Right.
really was. And um, it,
And,
you
and
said the
that's because we're being ruled. We're not being represented, right? And how dare I have the audacity to
Mhm.
come and show behind the curtain a little bit. Pay no
Yeah,
attention to the man behind the curtain. They don't want to talk about the AAC's involvement. They don't, they should. If I was sitting on that board and I heard that, I would be like, Mr. Norris, can I please have a copy of those documents that you're referencing
yeah,
just for my situational awareness? And then I would begin doing an informal inquiry into what was going on. And if need be, then I would request a formal investigation, at least into the ethics of it.
yeah.
Because I think it's highly unethical that an organization is giving templates and dictating basically to these counties on how to thwart the will of the people of those counties. It's egregious. You know?
It is. And if anything, you would think, even if they didn't agree necessarily with the method or with paper ballots, or they believe that the election is secure, and I don't know how anyone can truly think that now, especially this close to Tuesday and what we're seeing. Even still, should you not be curious? And should you not just ask to understand? That's what is so baffling to me. If you have this evidence in front of you, how are you, especially as a legislator, not, you know what, I just want to learn more. That's what was so discouraging
Well,
to me. It did seem like there was an agenda for that particular meeting. And so, well, of course, they're not going to ask Bryan any questions about it.
there was an agenda, and the agenda was to get the headlines, which they got. If you notice, the puppet media was immediately parroting those headlines immediately.
Yeah.
And I also suspect that perhaps they want to get a convention, refer charges for Colonel
Mm.
Conrad, his efforts and things that he's been doing. It's just it seemed very improper to me the way they were doing it. I didn't respect it at all. I think it could have been done way better. And one of the things that really stood out to me, I don't know if you caught it, that one female legislator um, made the motion to reserve the right to make her motion later, right?
I
And
believe that
she
was
did that.
Representative Robin Lundstrom.
I think you're right.
I
And she
noticed
did
it.
that before she even heard from Clayton Lancaster and the opposition team. And I want to highlight Mr. Lancaster there because without him on we wouldn't have a voice at all. We couldn't
Mm.
have our county couldn't have afforded to gone all the way to the Supreme Court. Um, we couldn't have. So, I want to give a shout out to Clint Lancaster and his efforts in supporting us in that because that was fantastic. But but she made that motion before hearing anything from the opposition, before, everything was done. And if you just want to have some semblance of impartiality, you wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, you, you know,
Yeah.
you're not even trying anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why I say we're being ruled. We're not being represented.
Let's talk about why do you believe this should not be a partisan issue? It feels like such a partisan divided issue. We were talking off camera right before we began about the last legislative session. Several election integrity bills tried to get through. They were thwarted. Some couldn't even get out of committee. Some legislators, conservative Republicans, spoke adamantly on the floor against these bills. Um, why do you think that is?
I don't know. I would like to be in some of these rooms and maybe for you, maybe some of the, like I showed you that stack of papers that I have, right? And maybe
Yeah.
the answer's in there. I think, they tried to drown me in paperwork, but they don't understand how, the way that I am is you can learn by two ways: blunt force trauma or 1,000 repetitions, right? And I'll just keep going. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop. I'm going to go through every freaking page that you gave me. So maybe the answer's in there, but I know this: once they open their eyes, right? Once the legislators open their eyes and they know something's wrong, they've got to work to make the improvements and fix the errors, right? And it's hard work, and some of that is they're going to have to admit that they're wrong, and a lot of people
Well,
don't admit that they've been wrong.
I think so. And I think what's so interesting right now is that we see those at the top of the Republican Party nationally, whether it's, JD Vance, Donald Trump, you see commentators, Tucker Carlson, Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, Vivek, all of these really bright, leading conservative voices in our movement, those whom they say, on the state level they support, and they all argue for this. And, Tucker, I can remember, and I've mentioned this before, I've mentioned it with Thurston. Whenever I interviewed him, I want to talk to you about that. I said, Tucker Carlson has said, as long as our elections are online and we use these machines, it is a banana republic. Our
Mhm.
elections are never safe and secure. Thurston, I really appreciated him coming on to talk to us on Conduit. He was very adamant that here in Arkansas, we have paper ballots. I want to get your opinion on that. We have paper ballots. Our machines are safe because they're not online. So, talk to us from your perspective about those comments.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and so why don't we just take them point by point, right?
Yeah.
So one of the first points that was made is we already have paper ballots. And while technically that's true, words mean things. You do get handed a piece of paper. I would argue that it's a receipt, right?
Mm,
To actually, give it the proper clarification. It's a receipt and has a barcode on it, right? Now,
yes.
that barcode is what the machine is reading. and it's been proven in other states that the barcode doesn't always match what the printed verbiage is on that receipt ballot. They don't match, but the barcode is what's being counted. Now, an example, if you go to Walmart and you purchase a bottle of ketchup, it's going to ring up one price, right? You can take that same exact bottle of ketchup and go to the gas station, and it's going to ring a completely different price because the code in the scanner is what tells the price to be displayed. The barcode stays the same. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever that ballot's ran through, whatever that machine is told to read from that barcode is what it's going to do, right?
Yeah.
So he says we have paper ballots, but you get a receipt, you feed it into a machine, and then you mark on a machine that then prints you out a receipt that you turn in. It's impossible for us to ever verify that your vote was accurately counted. It's impossible
Yeah.
because we don't read barcodes, and we're not allowed to have the source code of the machines because it's proprietary knowledge. So without hand-marked paper ballots where voters directly marked their choices, eliminated the need to rely on machines' interpretations, we will never have a secure election, right? And the other point you made, so the machines are not online, they're offline. So they're safe from tampering. But it's not that simple. If he would have came to Dr. Appel's roundtable, either in Little Rock or in Batesville, he would have heard one of the world's leading voting cybersecurity experts explain offline machines are still vulnerable. Even brief accesses before an election could allow malicious software to be introduced, and our ordinance eliminates that risk completely. They also, they use a thumb drive to install software updates. It's software.
Yeah.
So the code could have a malicious malware on it to where the machine acts exactly the way that it's supposed to act the entire time they're testing. But when that calendar and the machine hits voting day, it knows when voting day is, it switches its behavior. And then as soon as voting day is over, it switches back to acting completely appropriately. And no one's ever going to know, right? And the other point that Senator or Secretary Thurston brought up is he says barcodes are just markers for candidates'
Yeah.
position on the ballot, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. But Dr. Appel pointed out, and again, if he would have came there, he would have known barcodes are opaque to voters. There's no way a voter can verify what's
Yeah.
actually encoded in the barcode. And so we have to trust blindly in this machine's accuracy. It's something we've seen fail before.
Yeah.
When you hand mark a paper ballot, you see exactly where your vote is going, and it's going to stay that way. There's no hidden interpretation there. And then one of the other things that he hit on a lot was paper ballot or audits. We
Hmm.
don't really have auditing in our electoral process in the state of Arkansas. The secretary suggested that Arkansas conducts audits by hand counting 5% of the ballots in general elections. Um, well, 5% of one race of the general election from a select few counties. I mean, that's like walking into a stadium filled with boxes of ballots and grabbing a box and looking through that box and saying, "Yep, we're good to go." And it's very selective,
Yeah.
and it's just one race. It doesn't. And here's the key point: up until this year, I believe the audits have never taken place in primaries. As a solid red state, our elections are decided in the primary. So if you're going to
Wow.
cheat in the primary. Why would you go? Why would you even mess with the general election when the majority across the board, our our elections are decided in the
They are.
primaries, and
Yeah.
these audits are nothing but a spot check on a couple of machines. And they could know which machines to check beforehand. How do we know it's completely random? You know, and he
Yeah.
also talked about um, the the machine vetting and reliability. He talked about them vetting it. What was that vetting process like? We don't know. How
Mm.
thorough were you in that process? what are the metrics that you were using to say that these were the most reliable ones that we can buy? Like, we don't know that.
Yeah.
You've got to give me some quantifiable data to show how these things were tested and how you rigorously, performed on it. You've got to get, pretend I'm from Missouri, show me. And
Yeah.
they haven't shown us, and they won't. They just say, well, we vetted them and they're the most
Yeah.
reliable.
We're
Well,
good. We're safe. Yeah.
yeah, I don't.
Well, I think what's interesting right now is, for the past several years, especially after 2020, there were so many people, and we could name them, who were so vocal about the machines and the votes and just chaos in a lot of ways. They were completely minimized, diminished, lawsuits filed. No, this doesn't happen, that sort of thing. Okay, now we're watching the news cycle. We're watching, especially social media. Now that Elon's at Twitter, it's like the floodgates of information is open, and we're
Yeah,
able to see so much now. And remind me the state, but there was someone that said, you know what? Yeah, the machines, we are seeing some issues.
yeah.
These Dominion
Which
machines.
state, Guinea? You got
Which
Colorado. You've got
what?
Colorado admitting it. You've got Arizona admitting to some
Yes,
issues. You've got Shelby County admitting to some issues. You've got Pennsylvania admitting to a whole bunch of issues going on right
yes,
now. Um,
yes.
I
And
believe.
so they can't say now, they can't
Yeah.
say, oh, well, everything's safe and secure. Like it's so blatant now
Yeah.
in front of us. So where do we go from here? And how do we even view, you know, coming up on Tuesday?
Well, one of the another thing to hit on is they are always quick to say trust the experts, right?
Uh-huh.
All all the experts in this case say we got to have hand marked, hand counted paper ballots. If we're going to have safe and secure elections, we have to have hand marked and hand count. And think of it like our government operates off checks and balances, right? We're not saying completely get rid of the machines.
Yeah.
We're getting rid of the ballot marking devices. We don't want those at all. Those are garbage. In fact, they were only intended for handicapped people. We're still going to have them for handicapped people because that's an ADA requirement. But we're going to keep the ocular readers, the tabulators, and
Mhm.
that way, what the Secretary of State alluded to, there might be some delays or whatever. Well, they're still going to use the same ocular reader. It's just going to read your intention on it, on the ballot, right? It's going to read your physical intention instead of a barcode. And that's going to give you the count, the preliminary count, the unofficial count that you can report that night. And then over the next 15 days, the county clerk and her team will have to conduct a hand count to get the
Mhm.
certifying count. And here's the beauty in it, right? Checks and balances. The
Yeah.
machine count is checking the human count. The human count is checking the machine count. They should match. And if they
Yeah.
don't, we have a problem. But the beautiful thing about the hand marked and hand counted paper ballots is we will have a physical trail that will lead back to the issue. So through the forensic investigation, they can identify where the real problem, and it may have been the human count that's the problem, but
Hmm.
we know for sure, and we can correct it before we certify the vote. And to me, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Searcy County was the first county in Arkansas to go through the hand marked and hand counted paper balloting. They did it during the primary. And that county saved over $7,000, which is significant for Searcy County, according to
Hmm.
their election commissioner, who, by the way, came to Dr. Pell's Batesville roundtable, and she brought receipts,
Mm.
line items, and she quoted us every single thing that they spent money on. And she also alluded to the maintenance fees of the machines that they have to pay, which she said they may be paid by the state, they may be paid by the county. She doesn't know exactly who pays that, but also annually or before they do an election, they have to pay for a software upgrade, which for Searcy County, I believe she said it was $13,000 the last time they did that, which is
Mm.
significant for a
Yeah.
county like Searcy County. Pens are cheap, paper's quite cheap, and cardboard boxes with some curtains are cheap for privacy,
Yeah.
right? I don't know how expensive, like our county attorney, Daniel Haney, likes to say. Um, one ballot marking device costs $8,000. and you need multiple of them to run an election. And guess what? Pulaski County says that it's too expensive for them to use electronic machines everywhere during the general elections because they wouldn't be able to afford enough of the machines to go out. And they don't want to look like they're disenfranchising the minority vote. So, guess what they do? They do paper ballots in Pulaski County as well at certain polling locations because they can't afford the machines. So there's just a huge contradiction between them. They're not educated on it. They're not willing to be educated on it. They don't want to be educated on it. They want to, it's Ronald Reagan had a great saying about it. It's not that these officials are 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 ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't true. And
Hmm.
that's absolutely the case here. They know a lot that's inaccurate, and they won't listen to the experts that can educate them to know the truth and what's proper. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, it really can be. Well, before I let you go, just give us what's coming up next for Independence County, and then the legislative session, the regular session begins in January. Do you know if anyone's going to pick up this initiative again and give it another shot there at the state level?
Well, I hope we're definitely in conversation with some of them there. I mean, there are some, but like we alluded to earlier,
Yeah.
even though we have a vast majority of Republicans that control the House and the Senate, but yet we still have child mutilation happening at the Arkansas Children's Hospital, right? They couldn't even get
Yeah.
that stopped, and they gave up, and the Supreme Court ruled against them when they could have used the power of the purse and denied funding to the Arkansas Children's Hospital to put a stop to that mess. But they don't have the spine to actually do that. They don't want to do the tough things. They don't want to make decisions. And I can tell you right now, from my previous experiences and things that I've done in my past career, indecisiveness is the absolute worst trait that a human being can have and a leader can have. It will lead to chaos, it will lead to death, and it will lead to the destruction of whatever it is that you're trying to conserve and hold. You have to make a decision. And guess what? Even if it's the wrong decision, you've made it and you can do a course correction. But if you
Hmm.
never make a decision, you're never able to truly see whether you've made the right decision or the wrong decision. And you stay in this perpetual state of chaos, of constantly reacting, constantly just
Yeah.
coming up with a way for smoke and mirrors to do things. So we're not going to stop. We're not deterred. One of the things that I found through our FOIA is our county clerk wanted the quorum court to actually rule against us in one of these emails. She was like, hey, if this passes, can't the quorum court just veto it and get rid of it? Which I found appalling, honestly, that they would begin those conversations about that before we've even voted on it, right? Like you're just gonna say it doesn't matter what the people want. We're gonna get together and we're gonna toss it out no matter what. I
It's
think
so
that is just
disappointing.
it's egregious, it's improper, and I think she should resign for that fact alone, let alone all the other stuff that they've done up until this point, suing us to the state Supreme Court, lying about us, lying about our volunteers, lying about the canvassers. It's just it's improper, and we've lost the faith and confidence in her abilities, and I think that she should resign.
Well, keep us updated on Independence County. So much going on there. Really appreciate you joining us and just enlightening our viewers. A lot of our viewers, this is an important issue to them, and they know a lot more about it than I do as well. And so it's wonderful to have you come on and just give us a really good explanation of all of this. So thank you so
Well,
much.
Rasmussen Poe, more than 60% of Arkansans support paper ballots.
We published that.
Why is our government fighting us on it? It's clear that the people want it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
what's our state motto?
well, it's the people rule.
Regnant populace, right?
Yes,
Which means
somewhat.
people rule. So, but do we?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask. We'll have to ask our legislators, especially those who don't believe that they have to represent you at the Capitol. But I'm just still blown away by the fact that none of them would agree to, to just following through with the will of their constituents. What do
Yeah.
I know? Bryan, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope that you come back on again soon.
Hey, thanks for being a light in the darkness. Thanks for talking with me. Thanks for having a spine and standing strong. I look forward to partnering with you in the very near future and down the road to make our state better and let Arkansas for once lead the nation in something. Right? We're at the bottom or near the bottom when it comes to education. We're at the bottom or near the bottom when it comes to the obesity rates. We're at the bottom or near the bottom when it comes to average medium income. We're leading in all the wrong things in the state, and it's time for us to get a win, get a W for the people, let them see something that can motivate them to aspire to grow to. And I think that's something we can do by having the best government that represents the people and implements our will. And get out and vote. If you don't get out and vote, you're not being part of the process. If you didn't register in time enough, don't wait. Go register now, and then you're good to go for the next election. So there's millions of gravestones, white marble gravestones across this planet with America's finest laying underneath them. It's got their name on it. And it's got, those dash marks between those dates for those are very short. And they're short because they volunteered to go and do something on behalf of you to exercise that vote. And you want to say, we thank you for your support. We thank you for your sacrifice. Well, I think as someone who served, I thank you for being the best boss that a person could ever have, and that's the American taxpayer. So thank you all. And if you want to thank us, go out and exercise the rights that we were willing, and I'll be willing to do it again, to sacrifice for you to go and do. Stop sitting on the couch. It's time to get in the game and play.
Get out and vote. Bryan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.